no script because I don't really need one. Today we're just going to be going over whether the glow/brightness argument for Godzilla's power is reliable, so let's just get right into it. Basically, the main argument here is that the glow correlates into his power, the brightness correlates into his power, but a lot of people say this isn't the case, where this just means something else, or it's just for aesthetics, doesn't mean anything, yada yada yada. So let's go over the evidence that it does correlate into his power. 1. Every time glow is mentioned or brightness is mentioned, it's always in corresponding relation to his power and just his abilities in general. Like when he's charging up his atomic breath, how strong his atomic breath is, how strong his energy readings are, yada yada yada. So with that out of the way, since this is stated multiple times throughout the King of the Monsters novelizations, the GBK novelization, and the GXK novelization, where we can even use the statements from Kong, like his axe, where it says that its brightness, it's glowing, and it's not only is it glowing more, but it's also glowing brighter because of it drawing out radiation from the hollow earth, which corresponds to its power. And the movie also really does show this. And speaking of this entire argument that glow correlates into his power, the main thing that people use to debunk this is that, it doesn't really show up in the film. Okay, I got you, gang. In G14, his glow is practically non-existent. Yes, this is mostly probably due to the Mutos and other factors. But yeah, his glow here is non-existent, and we know this is a weakened and nerfed Godzilla. Then we skip to King of the Monsters, where he glows far more than he did in G14. And the main argument that people use to say that it's not reliable is the fact that Nucamp's glow, G21's glow. So let me just go over them, since they're the main factors when it comes to having this argument not be reliable. Holy sickness. Anyways, so G21, and we all know this, he has like massive glow. Oh, holy sickness, gang. Oh my god, bro, I'm cooked. Anyways, yeah, so G21 has like a massive glow. He glows all over the place. He's just seeping everywhere. He glows like the sun. And Nucamp, on the other hand, and just from first glance, doesn't seem to glow more than in base 19. But this just isn't true, considering he does glow more. He glows brighter, and he now has a passive glow that is just always present, while base G19 didn't have this. And it's even like directly stated that Nucamp is glowing brighter than in the likes of base G19. So the intention is very much there. And this even applies for Burning, where it says that he's just brighter than anything before, and that he's glowing more. And it's also stated that his glow corresponds to his power, let's just say power. It corresponds to his it corresponds to his energy, power, your life, yada yada yada. But anyways, so it's stated that when Ghidorah was draining Godzilla's radiation, that his glow was fading, and he was drained to such a degree where they thought this man was dead, or that he was actively dying. And so yes, his glow does correspond to his power, and his brightness, as shown earlier, obviously does correspond to his power. So let's just go over the real debunks real quick. Holy sickness, bro. Oh my god, gang. Anyways, on more relevant matters, is G21 and the crack stuff, the arguments that cracks and yada yada yada. Cracks can mean two things, and we have to really tell, based on the context clues, what they mean. They can either mean, this Godzilla is weakened, or 2, this Godzilla is extremely powerful. Because when he gets nuke-amped in King of the Monsters, he starts glowing, and from his neck, he's got cracks on his neck, or just crack slash magma like formations on his neck and shoulders by extension, and then like more so on his back as well. He's just glowing a lot more here. So yes, this does equal power. It shows this like base G19 didn't have this while Nuke Amp did. And if we go to G21, this man is constantly glowing from his neck and just stuff like that. So how do we tell whether this in G21's case does this mean that he's weakened, or does it mean that he's like more powerful? How we tell is that if we look at his body, there's just like no scars whatsoever. There's no like anything. There's just no scars whatsoever. There's just not really anything that conveys this. Yes, the white patches on him at first glance probably look like a wound or like a scar. They're just barnacles, bro. Like, there's just barnacles. It's directly stated that that's like the look they were going for, or to like convey that he's older and shit. Yeah, but anyways, so if we really go back to this, yeah, there's no real contradictions here. Some people will say, oh, his glow is like a darker shade, which means he's not as powerful. The darker shades can be corresponding to intensity, which he does have a more intense breath. And then also we see earlier in the movie that he's glowing a lot brighter. And we also see this in the likes of GXK, where they're in the daytime, and Godzilla specifically Energized is just glowing a lot brighter, while at nighttime he's just a lot darker. So it's most likely just the lighting. And we also see that in GVK and if we look at the final battle, his glow is practically non-existent. It's not really there. And he's no longer glowing from his neck. Like, he was doing that all the time in GVK. But in the final battle, he's just no longer glowing from that area. And how we can also tell on if cracks mean power or weakness is just the way they form their formation, their design. And like the ones of powers are more look like cracks and lines across his body, almost like stripes. But the ones of weakness, they're more like patches, more like blocks and stuff like that. So if we really take a look at that, we can see that to some extent G21 might be weakened, but the reason this doesn't mean weakness is because earlier when he was glowing, he either didn't glow from that place, or it just wasn't as bright. So when he really charged himself up in Hong Kong, now he's glowing all over the place. It's far brighter in that area. So how this is not contradictory is, I know you're going to bring up GXK being saying that, he's at the peak of his health and power and he doesn't glow nearly as much as G21. Simple. Godzilla charges himself up in preparation to fight major threats, and because Apex was fucking with him like the entire time throughout GVK. So he's just been all over the place. He's been charging up his power. And earlier in the movie, when there was another Mechagodzilla signal, he immediately turns around and heads for Hong Kong, which as we can see, he's not really glowing that much when he's first there. But once he appears in Hong Kong, it's clear he's been storing up energy. And because with his confirmation of the GXK novel, we know that he can store a lot more power than he does at any given time, which means there's his base power. Then we got his full capacity per se. So he's not always using his full power. So this is how it's not contradictory, because as here he's using more radiation. He's using his full power. He's charged up. He's been charging up his power this entire time, both as an intimidation display and also to just get ready for a major fight, because in his mind, it's like Ghidorah is back, or something of Ghidorah's caliber or is around, and in terms of destructive capability. So he's okay, I gotta charge up for this, which is why he's glowing so much, which is why he's so bright. He's glowing all over the place. He's got cracks all over the place, lines, stripes, yada yada yada, blah blah blah, all over him. He was really getting ready for this major fight, and that's kind of just why he glows so much here while he doesn't in GXK. It's because he's been storing up that power. this would not be contradictory, because in KOTM you're probably going to say, well, why didn't he do this for Ghidorah? This was a weakened Ghidorah that he sensed, and to him this is like a half dead, or there's mostly dead Ghidorah, because this Ghidorah has like a weak as shit extinguisher. So he's probably like, you know what, I could take him. I mean, his power is not nearly as strong as it once was. As yeah, I can take him. If I deal with him right now, I can get rid of him before he gets stronger. So that's probably why he didn't really charge up like he did for Hiroshima or Mecha, or what he believed to be Ghidorah, at least in GBK. But it's like, so yeah, that's just basically why. So no, there's like no contradiction here. The main thing that you're probably going to say is contradictory is the fact, well, Legacy of Monsters has this like glow. He's got like these cracks around his neck. Those aren't really cracks, they're more of lines. And so, according to my own logic, I would probably be saying that, Legacy of Monsters is above of the likes of G19, except Legacy of Monsters doesn't glow as much, he's not as bright, so it doesn't really mean much. So overall, it's more of an outlier per se, so it doesn't really debunk the argument. And because I have to be that guy, I will also mention Energize. As we see in like when he arrives in France, when he like first gets the amp, and he is glowing all over the place. But as we see him later in Spain, Spain by the way, he's glowing far brighter, he's glowing more, or so. It's more of just lighting per se, but he's still glowing like a shit ton, that's just like why that glow isn't contradictory here, and brightness isn't contradictory. And we later see that the neck formation thing, like the neck cracks thing, is like always an association of how strong he is. He explained that earlier, but it's like base evolved constantly is glowing from the neck every time, and also those spiral is just glowing all over the place. So yeah, is glow / brightness contradictory, or is it a reliable argument? From the knowledge I have gathered, the information I have gathered from both the movies and novelizations alike, I'm gonna have to say it is in fact reliable and it's not contradictory. And so yeah, that's just my touch on the matter.